A lot of our trauma lives in our body. So actually, we don't need to talk about it as much as we think we do. We just need to work it out. I think this is why exercise is so powerful. If I'm having a really bad day, going to the gym and just getting angry is exactly what I need. And sometimes we have to experience the full range of whatever emotion we have. We can't be like, okay, I'm angry, I'm angry, I'm angry. I need to stop. I need to stop this anger. No, you need to like complete the anger and doing it in a healthy way.
You're listening to the What the Gut podcast, where busy moms can come for a holistic approach to health and vitality. I'm Allison, your host, a holistic health and wellness coach. In this space, we'll dive into the intricacies of achieving holistic wellness while balancing the demands of daily life as a busy mom. What the Gut is your haven for navigating the challenges that come with juggling numerous tasks while aiming for a healthier, more balanced life. Join me as we uncover practical solutions to common health hurdles, from managing fatigue to understanding all things gut health. Through insightful discussions, actionable insights, and tailored lifestyle strategies, my goal here is to empower you to embrace a vibrant, nourishing life while saying goodbye to being overwhelmed and exhausted. So if you're ready to embark on this transformative journey towards holistic well-being, hit that subscribe button. Get ready to discover the secrets to thriving in motherhood while nurturing your overall wellness. A quick reminder, everything discussed here is for educational and empowering purposes only and is not intended for personalized medical advice. Consult your personal healthcare provider for personalized medical advice. Welcome to What the Gut, where we create our own path to holistic health, one episode at a time. Today on the podcast, I have Mallory Jacks, and Mallory coaches health and wellness entrepreneurs on lead generation through paid and organic marketing. She's also a retired doula and has been in the health and wellness space for over 10 years. I'm really excited to have you on the podcast today because I believe that this topic is going to hit home for a lot of us mamas. I know that I'm really excited to hear what you have to say for sure, because I know that I'm going to need to apply some of these strategies in my life day to day. I would love for you to talk to us today about your nervous system journey. I know that nervous system dysregulation is something that you have had challenges with, and I would love for you to share what that looks like and what you've done to overcome that.
Yeah. So I think to start, it's really important to share some context. We all have our own histories and past, big T trauma, little T trauma. And looking back on my history of like how I was raised, who I was raised by, I don't think that we should compare apples to oranges. And I don't think I have any hugely big T trauma. But for some context, I was conceived out of wedlock. My parents were not married when they got pregnant with me, and then they got married because that's what you do living in the South. I'm originally from Arkansas. I live in Oregon now and lived in Austin, Texas for about 7 years prior to moving to Oregon. But they got married and then got divorced 3 years later. In my opinion, they were never really a good fit for each other, but had me. So there was a purpose for that, right? And it was tumultuous, right? Going from different households back and forth, my parents having their own set of trauma and the way that they were raised. And then obviously that's how they raised me to a certain extent. I had a previous partner tell me that it's really amazing that I am where I am and who I am because of where I came from. I was raised in the Southern Baptist Church. I have some trauma from that. Nothing crazy, just some rigid, strict indoctrination. And I know you're a believer, and I'm so grateful for that foundation of my life too. Looking back in retrospect, there's a lot of good that came out of that. And then kind of going crazy in my early 20s. I didn't drink till I was 18 and just rejecting everything that I had learned in the church and then kind of spiraling out of control a bit. I moved to Austin, Texas when I was 24, 25 to open a Lululemon store. And Austin was hugely pivotal for my personal development journey. I have paid a lot of money for different personal development things. I've invested a lot of money in plant medicine and different retreats and different things. And eventually, long story short, it led me to becoming a doula. So I was a doula, or I guess I've been a doula. I think once a doula, always a doula. If a birth arose and somebody wanted me to support them, I would. But I was a full time doula for a while. You are a nurse practitioner, right? So you're familiar with what it's like working in the medical system, but especially working in the medical system as somebody who's not a medical practitioner and who doesn't have those letters behind their name. There's less respect, less like it's really rough, and it's rough being at births for 72 hours. And there was a period where I had 3 births in 1 week. I would take 4 clients a month, and their due dates would be spaced out, but as you know, babies are gonna come when they're gonna come. So there's periods where I was just at the hospital for the whole week, it felt like, and being in a hospital is just kinda like soul sucking with the fluorescent lights and the stress and the not sleeping and the bad food and the crappy coffee, and it just was a lot.
Not a
And
lot
then
of
COVID,
windows.
not a lot of windows,
Yeah.
a lot of churn and burn. We're just trying to get these babies out, paired with the lack of respect that I felt I kinda got as a doula because I wasn't a medical professional, but I did my best. I showed up, and then COVID hit. So that was a whole new layer of stress. And my roommate at the time, she kept having respiratory issues, and we thought she had COVID. And this was at the beginning of COVID times where testing wasn't as easily accessible. You had to wait 8 days to get your results back. So every time she would get tested, I would have to tell my clients, hey, I might have been exposed to COVID. I can't come to your birth. I'm going to send somebody else there, which creates financial stress for me. Turns out we just had black mold in our apartment. So she didn't have COVID. Yeah, so that was really rough. I personally didn't have a ton of side effects from the black mold, though I'm sure that it affected me in some way. So it's just all this compounding stress on top of it being COVID, not being able to work, having to wear masks, all the stress that came with living in 2020. And my nervous system was just a wreck. And I think that my nervous system had been a wreck from the start, from like childhood, this feeling of unsafety, my parents not always being there, not knowing who's going to pick me up from school, not having anybody to co regulate with because my parents didn't know how to regulate themselves. And my thyroid was 2 times the size it was supposed to be. I had thyroid nodules. I had cysts on my ovaries. I was just a wreck. It was really tough. I think you could resonate with this as a mother and a caregiver. You just like give, 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 give until you beat yourself in the ground. I was taking supplements and I was going to my midwife. I like to see a midwife as my primary care practitioners generally because I like their approach. She was a midwife nurse practitioner, so she could prescribe, and I was looking at what I was eating, but nothing was really working. And that was the start of the planting of seed of like, I'm dysregulated. I'm in a fight or flight state and something needs to change. So I gave up my work as a doula and moved to Oregon. I still wasn't really addressing it. I felt like things changed a little bit because I wasn't living in Austin anymore. And if you've been to Austin, Austin's a big city now, and there's light pollution and sound pollution, and there's always something to do. And moving to Oregon, life kind of slowed down a bit, which I felt like helped me see where I had an opportunity to slow down, but I was so used to going, 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 and I still am. I mean, if you look at my mom, she does not know how to sit still, and I'm the same way for sure. And then I was working online as a coach and a business support person for a couple different businesses, but I was just getting beat down with work and my relationship, and everything felt like it was spiraling out of control. And I've experienced anxiety for most of my life, given that the way I grew up and feeling dysregulated, and it was just heightening and heightening and heightening. And I wanted so badly to be a calm, collected woman, but my nervous system didn't know how to do that. So I called my friend Ariana Joy. She owns Trauma and Somatics. It's a great program. I would highly recommend it. And I was like, I don't know what to do. I don't know how to be. I can't get out of this spiral. And she's like, I think you just need to do less. Because my tendency is like when I see a problem, I'm like, okay, what do we need to throw at it to fix it? What
Like, what do we
supplements
need
do I
to
need to take?
do? Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
action word of not just sitting still, but doing something. Yeah.
Yeah. And what I really need to do is do less. And I imagine some of your listeners can resonate with this as mothers and as women who are caregivers. We just don't know how to sit still. It's a very masculine way of being, too, of like, how can I fix this? Right. And she was like, actually, Mallory, I think you need to do less. And I was like, well, I don't even know how to do that.
Right.
So I started slowing down and really getting back to the basics. And you commented on my threads post that I made on Instagram recently of like, am I feeding myself? Am I drinking enough water? Am I going outside? Am I leaning on my community? And then I threw in some other biohacking tools too, more doing, but they helped a lot. So, cold plunging is a huge part of my nervous system journey. Cold plunging basically puts you into a state of fight or flight immediately. So, you're going to sympathetic, but if you stay in it, you'll kind of go through these waves of sympathetic, parasympathetic, sympathetic, parasympathetic, which is really what we're supposed to do. That's how it's supposed to be. We're supposed to be able to go sympathetic, parasympathetic, sympathetic, parasympathetic. But what tends to happen to us in our society is we go into sympathetic and then we just stay there for the rest of the day. You can imagine you're driving in your car and you have to slam on your brakes really hard to miss a deer or a bicyclist. And because of the state of dysregulation that many of our society is in, we just stay up there. Can you imagine that happens, right? And your kids are in the car and their goldfish fly everywhere. And then the whole rest of the day, you're just in this state of what I call like crunchiness. I just can't get out of it because we haven't trained our nervous systems to come back down into the parasympathetic, essentially. That's the journey in short. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's really interesting. I was going to ask for people who may not know whenever they hear nervous system regulation or nervous system dysfunction, what are some of the things that you recognized in your body that were happening daily?
Yeah, that's a really great question. So, as I mentioned, I have experienced anxiety. And I'll also point out, I like to say I've experienced anxiety versus I have anxiety. I don't want to identify with that the rest of my life. And we all experience anxiety a little bit differently, but it's just like these constant thoughts of, I need to be doing this. Why didn't I do that? What did I do in sixth grade? Why did I say that thing to the boy across from me? Oh my gosh. When you leave like social settings and you're like, oh my gosh, I'm so stupid. Why did I say that thing? So
I'm glad I'm
definitely
not the
like,
only one.
yeah, like a baseline level of anxiety for sure. But also clenching my jaw. I'll notice sometimes when I'm in higher states of stress, I'll be going to sleep and I'll be clenching my hand like this. Neck tension, shoulder tension. This will land for you, but bowel dysfunction, not pooping or pooping too much. Overeating, undereating. Undereating is definitely one that I experience. What else? Stemming is like things that people do to regulate their nervous system. I say little girls. I feel like this is what you see most common in girls is when they pull their hair out. You've seen that with kids, or
Mhm.
they pull their eyebrow hair out or their lash hair out, biting your nails, picking at scabs, fidgeting. It's all stemming. It's all our body's really wise decision to try to help us regulate a little more. Popping pimples. I'm so
Okay.
embarrassed to say. I'm embarrassed to like say that out loud, but it's true.
No, I can
Mhm.
relate.
I know when I am in a more stressed state because you can look at my face and be like, "Oh yeah, Mallory's been sitting in the mirror a little too long lately." You get it?
Yeah.
Thank you, body, because you're trying your best to help me regulate more. So something I worked on with my therapist is finding better stemming tools. So playing with my slime or deep compression. So using weighted blankets, cool, like putting ice packs on, putting heat packs on, temperature changes. Obviously, walking and exercising is always really great tool. Oh, being really snappy and like crunchy with your partner, your husband, or your kids, just having a really short fuse. That is something that was very present for me for most of my life. And still something I struggle with to this day. But I know that if I'm well fed, I've had water, I've exercised, that's much less likely to happen.
Yeah. Can relate to a lot of that. And I'm like,
Yeah.
"Okay, maybe my nervous system is definitely out of whack right now." So where would you suggest somebody start if they recognize these things?
Yeah. Well, I think the first step is recognizing that you have a problem, noticing those things as they come up, identifying them and just noticing them. You don't have to change them. You just have to notice them. So that's a really great place to start. And then always coming back to the basics of, have you eaten today? Have you had water today? Are you going to the bathroom when your body tells you that you need to go to the bathroom, or are you holding it, which creates pelvic floor dysfunction, which creates all sorts of dysfunction, right? Have you been outside today? So there's a lot of free things that you can do to regulate your own nervous system. Like, do you need to walk away from your kids? Do you need to actually put them in front of the TV or give them the iPad so that you can go take care of yourself and regulate yourself? We look down on those things, right? Screen time for your kids, but we don't live in community anymore. You don't live with your parents. You don't live with your siblings. So you don't have the option to pass them off to another adult or a caregiver. So that's the next best option. And that's totally okay. I think coming back to those basic things is a really great place to start. There's also tons of information online. My Instagram feed is full of like, try this tongue exercise to help stimulate your vagus nerve.
Yeah.
One of my clients is a company called Trauma and Somatics, and they help practitioners like yourself learn somatic tools so that they can better meet their clients with this kind of stuff. You can follow them on Instagram. It's Trauma and Somatics. Somatic practitioners are great as well. Getting body work done. A lot of our trauma lives in our body. So actually, we don't need to talk about it as much as we think we do. We just need to work it out. I think this is why exercise is so powerful. If I'm having a really bad day, going to the gym and just getting angry is exactly what I need. And sometimes we have to experience the full range of whatever emotion we have. We can't be like, okay, I'm angry, I'm angry, I'm angry. I need to stop. I need to stop this anger. No, you need to like complete the anger and doing it in a healthy way. So using exercise, screaming into a pillow, there's all sorts of tools. Anger is a healthy emotion to have. Anxiety, stress, those are all part of the human experience. It's just a matter of letting them be and being with them versus trying to cut them off because we're supposed to be happy or we're supposed to be a happy, playful mom all the time.
Yeah. I love that you pointed that out because I know, especially as a mom with your kids, if they are frustrated and throwing a temper tantrum, it's so easy to just be like, okay, stop, stop. But that's not
Mhm.
teaching them how to regulate their nervous system. And so being aware of that, I've gotten to where I see my kid fussing. I'm like, okay, I can't listen to it right now, but if you need to fuss, go in the other room. That's the fussing room. Just because I can't handle it right now, you can still do that somewhere else, just not in my face, right? But I think that even adults struggle with that so much because they think that they have to put on this perfect display to their wife or husband or whoever, and they just don't
Yeah.
even they just suppress everything.
And I think this kind of also comes back to inner child work with how are we parenting ourselves? Because many of us in our age range, our parents did not have the tools. Their parents didn't teach them how to regulate. They didn't teach us how to regulate. But we can now go back and reparent ourselves. So when I'm in a state of just crunchiness, sitting down and being like, okay, the same way that you would with your kid, like they're screaming, let's say it's a 2 year old, so they don't have a ton of language, right? To tell you this is what I need. They're screaming and you're like, okay, baby, what do you need right now? Do you need water? Do you need to go outside? Do you need to take a nap? Do you need to talk about it? Tell me how you're feeling. And so meeting ourselves in that same way of what do you need right now? And I'm so grateful to live with my two best friends who are also very versed in nervous system regulation. So when we notice that one of them is being crunchy, we're like, hey, have you had water today? Have you eaten today? Can I make you a meal? And we need to do that to ourselves more.
Yeah. For sure. I love that. It's easy. It's easy whenever you live with other people who are aware of that too.
Yeah.
So, if
You
I
live with a bunch of little babies, kids who are not aware of that. So you're like
right.
leading the way.
Yeah.
What a beautiful gift that you can give them to teach them those things so that they can then do that at school and
Yeah.
or do that when they have kids. I think about if nervous system regulation was taught in schools, how much less school violence, addiction problems, etc., would come up. But it's not taught, unfortunately.
I know. I will say because I'm so aware of it. I do try to really display that to my children, and my oldest is 9, and she has gotten to where sometimes if I am being really snippy and just short with them, I tell them, "I'm just really overwhelmed right now," but she recognizes that, and she's like, "Go sit down. I'll take care of brother and sister," even though that
Oh,
means getting them the junk food that might be in the house, but she's starting to recognize that, and so that's always nice because it's like somebody else is here to take care of me.
I
It's
love
sweet.
that. I
Yeah,
love that. That's
it's sweet.
awesome.
You were talking about cold plunging, and to me,
Mhm.
that's, like, next level trying to regulate your nervous system. Tell me, what are some either other ways that you would say take it to the next level to try to regulate your nervous system, and how did you start to cold plunge? How does somebody start to do that if they want to?
Yeah. Yeah, well, here's the thing about me too, and I made an Instagram post about this recently, is like I tend to be a pretty extreme person. I like to put myself through challenging things. I remember the first time I cold plunged, I was with my friend Bryn in Austin, and I was like, I can't do this. Like, I'm dying. I literally, my body was like, I'm dying. I cannot do this. And it was like 30 seconds. And now I've gone up to like 8 minutes before. Like, you just do it. You just get in and you do it and you try it for 30 seconds and then it gets a little easier. So, some tools that I have to help me while I'm in that cold plunge is vagus nerve stimulation. So, humming, singing, oming, making noise, and being vocal is going to help regulate your nervous system more. And you can actually take those same tools that you're using when you're in a state of sympathetic distress, cold plunge, and bring them into your daily life as well. Whenever, let's say, I had to slam on my brakes, I'm going to like sit there and is really stimulating for the vagus nerves, which will help calm you down. I'm sure there's acupressure points you can touch as well. So that's the cold plunge. You kind of just got to do it and know that you're doing the hard thing and it will not last forever. And again, when you first get in, you're going to spike up to this sympathetic space. Your body's like, oh, hell no, let's get out of here. But if you stay and you breathe, you'll come drop back into a parasympathetic state and then you might come back up. And it's really interesting. It's a fun way to play with your nervous system and challenge yourself.
It sounds just like labor.
I know. I know. It's
Which
crazy. I,
which to me, okay, while we're talking about it, my 2nd child, I labored for a long time with her. My first baby was scheduled C-section, so as far as labor went, I had nothing to compare it to. But I was like, "I'm gonna have a natural birth, like, this is what I wanna do for this one." So I did a ton of research, read a ton of books, and so I, like, knew, "Okay, your contractions are gonna go like this, and I just need to breathe." I had a doula with me, the whole thing, but the pain never stopped, okay,
yeah.
for, like, 2 days,
Oh
and
my God.
turns out she was occiput posterior, and we didn't know that
Yeah.
till she was, like, coming out, but I don't know. I can do hard things, but I'm like, "It won't last forever," but it kinda did, like, with that, and so
Well, and then it didn't, and then she came out, and you had this, like, huge rush of oxytocin, and you were like, "Oh, let's do that again," and you did. So
yes, I did, but I will say that was even more of a joke, though, because with Chance, my son, it was like, okay, it'd have a contraction, then it would stop, and then it would start again, and I'm like, "Okay, like, when's it gonna stop?" Like, it's like it's teasing me the whole time.
Mhm,
I don't know
mhm,
which was worse, but
mhm.
I have not been able to do a cold plunge yet. I'm just super nervous about it because when I take a shower, I don't even turn the cold water on. It's hot.
No.
It's all
Yeah,
hot,
yeah.
and I just I don't know. It
Cold
makes
cold
me
showers Cold
nervous.
showers are harder than cold plunges, in my opinion, because cold showers are like cold water constantly running on you. Whereas in a cold plunge, if it's a still water cold plunge, meaning there's not any water circulating through it, which mine is because it's a redneck cold plunge, it's a horse trough. There's no pump or anything, it just has water in it. Your body actually starts to create a thermal layer around you and will like heat up the water a little bit. So, cold plunging to me is easier than cold showers. But you're absolutely right. It is like labor, and that is a great tool for you to practice labor, essentially.
In labor
Uh,
or in the cold plunge.
and the cold plunge, yeah. Like I feel very prepared for labor, not only because I've seen 50 plus births, But because I've done cold plunge, I've done ayahuasca, I've done combo, I've done a lot of things that have really stressed my nervous system and allowed me to experience and simulate kind of what birth is like. That makes me want to go into a whole nother conversation of yes, 100%. Birth is a fight or flight situation. It is a parasympathetic racetrack of up and down. And when animals give birth, they go into a cave and they get really comfortable and try to relax as much as possible. I personally don't think the hospital is the best place to do that. I
Not at
think
all.
the hospital puts you into more sympathetic state and you can't
All
actually
the
relax and
all the
let birth
lights.
happen.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
And having to lay on your back, and
And
it's
talk to
like
strangers. There's going to be strangers there. What?
right. Yeah, it is not ideal. I don't know who came up with that. Yeah.
Did you have all three of your babies at the hospital though?
I ended up doing it that way, yeah. So, my first one was a scheduled C-section. I didn't know anything about having any other option at the time,
Yeah.
and, I mean, that was fine, it was a good experience, and then my second one, I labored at home for a little bit. I wanted to labor at home as much as I could, but I was gonna have her at the hospital because I'd had a previous C-section and was nervous about uterine rupture. But I did have a birth plan that was very strict. I was going to bring my essential oils. Nobody was allowed to come in the room unless my doula said they could. Only my husband and my doula were there. My parents weren't there. I didn't want all my friends and family. Like, y'all don't come see me while I'm doing this. That's ridiculous.
Mhm.
I was going to eat during labor. I mean, because they say you can't eat, like you can't eat or drink. And
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, you want me to die? I had all of these things. I had my birth ball. I had all these things to make it as relaxing as I could. And it was overall. And then my third, I was planning to do a home birth. So I had the pool, I had a midwife, I had everything set up. It was super relaxing. But he decelled one time
Mm.
and it had been 12 hours. And so I had a backup plan already. My midwife suggested going to the hospital. So he was an urgency section, which
Mm.
actually ended up really being a blessing because hours later, after he was born, my uterine artery ruptured and I had to go back to emergency surgery. I mean,
Oh my
it
gosh.
that's a whole story, but
Yeah.
I
It's a
almost
whole
didn't
podcast.
yeah, I almost didn't make it, but if I would have been at home, my midwife would have been there with me for a while,
Yeah.
checking on me and everything, but I would not have made it to the hospital. So it ended up being a blessing. But yeah, I think I've had eventful births and I'm good.
You're good. You're complete with the babies.
Yes. But that was also the last birth. That was during COVID. And I had the same doula with me who's one of my close friends. I want my doula because she could communicate a lot more
Yeah.
effectively about like what's going on without having that emotional connection. So that was a whole thing.
Birth is a wild journey. It's a wild journey for
Yeah,
sure.
very much so.
Mm.
Well, do you have anything else that you want to add?
I think my work with my nervous system is like a constant, consistent journey that I'll be on for the rest of my life. And I think that as parents, which I'm not a parent, by the way, I have worked with a lot of parents, I've worked with a lot of kids, but what great teachers that we have with kids, they are an opportunity to stress your nervous system like a cold plunge and practice these tools every day. And then just really listening to your body, like listen to your body in the small things, going to the bathroom, thirst, movement, shoulder pain, etc., which will then help you show up better for the big things. So that like, let's say the apocalypse happens or something, and like we have to show up as like we have to help people birth babies. Like we're ready for that because we're regulating ourselves. That's a really extreme example, but I think about some stuff like that.
I've got it. I've got it.
Yeah. 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 We're good. We're good.
Yeah. I love it. Well, Mallory, this has been a really awesome episode. I'm going to go think about how I can do a cold plunge now and try to prepare. And
Yeah.
I will let you know if I do. But thank you
Thank
so much
you.
for being here today.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for being a part of my journey on What the Gut podcast. For a deeper dive into today's topics, head over to allisonandwellness.com/whatthegut or find the detailed show notes linked below. Hey, and don't miss out on future episodes. Hit that subscribe button, and if you love this one, please leave me a review. Let's keep the conversation going over on Instagram. Connect with me and stay updated and engaged with my awesome community. Plus, share these valuable insights with your tribe. They deserve to feel as amazing as you do. You can find me at Allison_and_wellness on Instagram. Your support means the world to me. I'm looking forward to our next awesome chat. But until then, stay curious, don't drink too much coffee, keep the vibrant energy flowing, and take care of your gut. Catch you real soon. Oh, and hey, if you're ready to dive deeper into personalized wellness, check out my one-on-one health coaching program at allisonandwellness.com. Let's make your journey to holistic health truly transformative.